The name is as iconic as you can possibly get. Even those with no knowledge of the films can picture it within their minds whenever it is spoken. Godzilla. With over 30 films in the property's catalog and nearly 70 years worth of history, Godzilla has become a worldwide phenomenon, and without even needing to try, as it's retained its title of the King of the Monsters for all of this time. As of the creation of this video, there are, for the first time ever, 2 upcoming Godzilla films in a very short amount of time. We have the Japanese Toho studio production that started it all, creating Godzilla Minus One, which is slated to drop at the end of this year, and a sequel to the ongoing MonsterVerse films produced by Legendary Pictures in the US called Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire, which is coming out in 2024. But none of this would be possible without the original. And as a massive fan of the Godzilla franchise, there's no denying the series has gone through its ups and downs with various entries, some being very dark, some wild and crazy, some kinda straight up comedies, and others, well, let's just say there's a lot of weird stuff. The Toho Japanese-produced Godzilla films, where it all started, are mostly separated into 3 continuities. The Showa-era films, starting with the original and spanning to 1974. The Heisei-era films, which include only the original film as its continuity, and then begins a new continuity from 1984 to 1995. And the Millennium series, which kind of is a collection of standalone films, all again only using the original as its starting point, and these came out from 1999 to 2004. And then there wasn't another Godzilla film until 2016, Shin Godzilla, which is completely its own entity with no relation to any of the prior films. But despite the separate continuities and wildly inconsistent tones between all the films, the first movie, Godzilla from 1954, directed by Ishiro Honda, remains not just the best Godzilla film, but one of the most important and powerful films in general to come out of Japan or just anywhere in the world. I consider the original Godzilla to be a true work of art, and I say that without any hyperbole whatsoever. In my mind, I kind of separate it from the rest of the franchise because as much as I love dudes in giant rubber monster suits beating the fuck out of each other, and I do love that, this is not that movie. The first movie is a powerful exploration on the developing destructive powers mankind was beginning to possess and what it could mean for our future. It's a commentary on the fallouts of war and the devastation that Japan faced as a culture after World War II. It's about the morality and responsibility these incredible discoveries give us and what we can do with its potential. And of course, it's about the futile efforts of mankind and recognizing where we stand in the face of nature itself. Godzilla himself is portrayed to represent the atomic age, a pure vessel of invincibility that mankind is not equipped to handle and must bear witness to its raw and awesome power, obliterating everything in sight. Put the images of Godzilla destroying Japan over the musical score by Akira Ifukube and the black and white cinematography of the movie, remembering that this is only shortly a decade after the creation and the use of the atomic bomb, and we are left with this feeling of utter helplessness in the wake of devastation caused by the roots of mankind's desire for power and the fear of losing it. America just witnessed the release of the film directed by Christopher Nolan about the life of Robert Oppenheimer, who was known to the world to be the father of the atomic bomb. And though we didn't see the bombs landing in that movie, the results would forever change not just the country of Japan, but the entire world moving forward. Now that it was no longer a theory, but a true harsh reality that human beings could cause obliteration at this magnitude very quickly. On August 6th and August 9th of 1945, 2 bombs were dropped onto Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, effectively demonstrating the new technology to the world and forcing the country to surrender. Not only was the devastation horrific beyond imagination, but the fallout afterwards and the effect of the radiation was not properly researched or understood at the time, and it caused even more terror and fear as time went on. And yes, this is going to be a movie review, but I think it's incredibly important to understand the context of things. I couldn't imagine trying to watch Godzilla without at least a general comprehension of what something like that did to the world, and especially the hearts and mind of the people of Japan. Added to this, in 1954, before the movie came out, there was also something called the Lucky Dragon No. 5 incident. Lucky Dragon being the name of a Japanese fishing boat caught within an unexpected radiation fallout of nearby nuclear weapon testing, where the crew then experienced serious radiation sickness. This is fresh in the minds of Toho producer Tomoyuki Tanaka, and he began to develop the concept around this for a film while also being heavily inspired by a movie called The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms from 1953, where an atomic explosion awakens a creature from the ocean depths that comes to wreak havoc on the mainlands. It was directed by Eugene Laurie and contains some incredible stop-motion effects for the time. This movie is also a must-see for any monster movie fan, and you can almost look at it like the prototype Godzilla. It also cannot be understated that King Kong was also a massive inspiration for the movie, but King Kong is a movie that inspired just about everybody for decades, so it's really no surprise. One of the best to ever do it for sure. Ishiro Honda agreed to direct the untitled monster film along with co-writing it with Takeo Murata. Honda was versed in film very well and also was a veteran in the military. He had seen a lot of horrors that the world had to offer, and I think that probably helped him create this movie. And if you said that the original Godzilla was a horror film, I honestly would not argue with you on that. Ishiro Honda was even good friends with Akira Kurosawa, one of the most legendary directors of all time, and coincidentally, both Godzilla and Kurosawa's Seven Samurai would release in the same year, and to this day, both are main staples of Toho Studios and films that are still talked about decades later. Coming up with the title for Godzilla, it's kind of hard to find a definitive answer. There's a lot of different stories out there, but most people seem to believe that Gojira, the Japanese term, it was a combination of the words for gorilla and whale, so Gorira and Kujira. So Godzilla is a gorilla whale? I don't know, but there is a metal band called Gojira, and they kick ass. You should listen to them. The film opens up with the Toho logo, and you hear the iconic roar of Godzilla. Distinct, iconic, and synonymous with the entire franchise. Also, apparently it was created by dragging a leather glove against strings of a double bass. That's interesting. However they did it, it's absolutely perfect, and it's impossible to think of Godzilla without including his iconic roar. I also love introducing the roar before you actually see him. It's not like Godzilla is necessarily kept in the background or away from the camera. You do see him quite a bit in the movie, but I like the idea that if you have no idea what Godzilla looks like or what he is, and this is the first thing that you hear, it's that fear of the unknown and that potential of despair. The movie also starts out mimicking the Lucky Dragon number 5 fishing boat incident, with a boat of fishermen seeing something in the water and then a blinding flash of light encompasses them. This shot, without seeing Godzilla, and just thinking about witnessing something so powerful, so strange, and so beyond their comprehension. Just like an average person witnessing the drop of a bomb. No time to even understand or defend themselves. They are just victims to something incredible with no time to react. We meet two of our main characters, Ogata and Emiko. Ogata is a sailor in a coast guard, and Emiko the daughter of a renowned paleontologist, Yamane. The actor playing Ogata is a legend in his own right and appears in several different Godzilla films, but always as different characters. And yet somehow this was never confusing to me as a kid. He's just great in every role that he plays. They send another ship to investigate the missing boat, and that ends up being destroyed as well. Clearly something horrible is happening off the coast, but nobody can figure out what it is. Though the old fishermen begin calling it Godzilla and likening it to an old fable of a sea monster that they would have to sacrifice people to in order to keep it from coming ashore. And though that isn't what Godzilla is in this movie, I like the combination of ancient legends mixing with the ideas of technology and the present time. Like maybe it was an inevitability that a monster would be created. No matter if the legends were true or not, everything becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. After that, we see POV shots of characters by the coast experiencing earthquakes and toppling houses from Godzilla stepping onto the mainland. We still don't see him yet, but it's all about the perspective and the confusion of that first attack. Godzilla doesn't appear until the paleontologist Yamane comes to investigate, standing in the footprint and receiving indications of radiation. And then the warning gong is sounded. People are running in terror, and from over the hilltop, Godzilla appears for the first time in film. His design resembling a bit of a reptilian aspect, kind of similar from the Beast of 20,000 Fathoms, but standing upright, dorsal fins along his back, and the charred skin. They also give him the ability to fire what would become known as his atomic breath, essentially shooting a beam of atomic power from within him and causing massive explosions. A lot of people think Godzilla shoots fire like a dragon or something like that, but this power is directly tied into his origins and his symbolism of nuclear power forever changing the world. The lore of the film itself basically suggests that Godzilla was likely a prehistoric creature laying dormant in underwater caverns, but the nuclear bomb testing awoke and even possibly mutated him, and he's beginning to rise to the surface for either vengeance or just general chaos. You can also see him as just representing Mother Nature itself, coming to reclaim its rightful place in the food chain. Godzilla can also be seen as completely neutral. And again, I'm only talking about the first film. Other sequels and continuities change his origins and alignments from time to time, but here, there's not necessarily anything malicious in what Godzilla is doing. He just doesn't know what boats or buildings or even people are, so he destroys them without a second thought. There's also a political angle of the movie, like should we tell the mass public about it? Will it just start a panic? Should we warn people so they can prepare? How do we prepare? What do we tell them exactly? Can we be honest about it? And a lot of discussions on how to handle something that we don't understand, which is extremely relevant to its themes. But there are two things that are absolutely the crux of this movie. One is the Godzilla destruction scene of the city, and the other is Dr. Serizawa. Let's start with the Godzilla scene. It might seem like second nature now, but at the time, a scene like this was incredibly jaw-dropping. Godzilla basically sparked the kaiju genre, and we expect to see giant monsters mow down cities like nothing and tank the military forces trying to destroy them, but Godzilla was the first to really do it in Japanese cinema. There's a few sequences of a good 10 to 15 minutes solid straight of Godzilla just doing his thing. He's picking up trains, crashing down buildings, firing atomic breath everywhere, destroying everything in sight. And it's one of those few Godzilla movies where you truly see the pain and panic desperations of regular people who can't escape in time. A lot of the later movies would make it more abstract, where you never really see the true horrors on ground level, but this movie does not shy away from it. And there's no other monsters or anything like that. There's no action-centric scenes. This is just pure carnage, reminding us how pathetic we really are in the face of it. I love the shots that show Godzilla from a distance, basked within the flames of his conquests. This is the power of the creature and the power of this film on full display. Now, the importance of Dr. Serizawa. Serizawa is a scientist that Yamada wants his daughter to be with, even though now she's with Ogata, so there's some love triangle action there for you too. But Serizawa has engulfed himself in his own scientific research and makes a discovery that he is terrified to share, but finding solace in Emiko, he brings her to his laboratory as an outlet to not keep it to himself. He has to show somebody, and I know the eye patch might make you think some way about him, but he's not a mad scientist or an evil character, quite the opposite. He lost his eye in World War II, and afterwards he wanted to create something that would help humanity, and he represents something that I think is the true moral predicament of the entire premise of this film, because he has created something called the Oxygen Destroyer, a device that can disintegrate oxygen atoms, causing all nearby life to essentially rot down to the bone instantly. The discovery and creation of this invention is not unlike the atomic bomb itself, an immense discovery for the progress of science and humanity, but something no doubt the world powers would want to get their hands on and use for their own benefit against other nations. Something that if word got out, Serizawa would likely be forced to create more oxygen destroyers, to develop further technology and to make it even more powerful, and to plunge the world into the same despair that it's already currently facing. But we have the threat of Godzilla, perhaps already a worldwide destroyer himself, and Serizawa's invention might be the only thing that can stop him. So Serizawa wrestles with the correct decision of sitting on perhaps the only weapon capable of killing Godzilla, but once that weapon is revealed to the world, it could be the end of the human race. And that's one hell of a powerful and poignant problem to put into a monster movie that has a guy in a big rubber suit. Oh yes, and I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention Haru Nakajima. He was the guy inside the Godzilla suit destroying everything and played Godzilla throughout basically the entire Showa era. There's also another guy, Katsumi Tezuka, and they started an entire genre of acting, suitimation. It's fantastic. I love it. The final act of the film has Emiko breaking her promise to Serizawa, believing his discovery is the only thing to save people from Godzilla, and he is pushed to use it, but destroys all of his research and notes in the process, meaning he is the only man alive that would know how the oxygen destroyer works, which leads to an incredibly somber finale. Unlike many future Godzilla movies, or just films in general, the first Godzilla film doesn't end with a gigantic action scene or set piece. It's a dark, somber, and reflective end that causes Serizawa to make the ultimate sacrifice. Taking the oxygen destroyer himself into the ocean, cutting the cord on his diving gear, and giving up his own life to both kill Godzilla and to never allow his technology to get into the hands of those that would abuse it. The score here is melancholy and somber. Godzilla screams in reaction to the destroyer, and it's almost sad to watch. Even though we witnessed him kill so many people, you feel this sense of innocence to him. And yes, Godzilla is actually killed in this movie, reduced down to bones, with no plans of a sequel or a franchise in mind. This was a movie with something to say, and this final scene displays it all. Both Serizawa and Godzilla are tragic figures, both harboring capabilities of annihilation, and both subject to the responses of the world around them and what they see them as. Some can even look at Serizawa's sacrifice as kind of a fictional take on a person like Oppenheimer, being responsible for a major discovery, but left with that gut punch feeling of what that can mean for the world moving forward. And then the movie just ends. The monster is destroyed, but there's no joy about it. There's no victory celebration. It's just simply pain and mourning for everybody involved. It does not make you feel good at all. Like, where's Jet Jaguar when you need him to lighten the mood? Now, of course, when I first watched Godzilla, I did not fully understand what that movie was supposed to be, not only because I was 5 years old, but I'm sure that played a part. But also, this was back when movies from other countries came to the US, they would change and alter things to try to make them more accessible to American audiences. Now, I haven't seen the re-edited American version in forever, and I don't really care to go back and watch it. But essentially, they added in a bunch of new scenes with actor Raymond Burr to play a reporter going to Japan, and he essentially narrates the whole movie as if the audience is too dumb to understand it on their own.
The prehistoric monster the Japanese call Godzilla has just walked out of Tokyo Bay.
This is the version that added the subtitle King of the Monsters, but that is something that actually stuck over the years. Fun fact about me, though, technically, the Godzilla King of the Monsters version was the first Godzilla film that I ever saw. But I'm not sure how much I paid attention to the human scenes. I was around 5 years old and I was obsessed with dinosaurs. And like a lot of people my age, our biggest exposure to the Godzilla movies was when the TNT network had its Godzilla marathon every once in a while.
Well, it's big and terrible.
My parents told me Godzilla's like a dinosaur, so I should watch it. And now in hindsight, they were probably just trying to get me to sit still and not run around the house or something, but I can honestly say that the first time I saw Godzilla with my own eyes was legitimately Godzilla's first appearance coming over the hillside in this movie. It is a core memory for me, and I will honestly never forget it. Now, obviously, as a kid, I didn't care too much for this movie because I was more invested in the ones that were in color and had monster fights. But now, as an adult, looking at the messages and themes and just the incredibly well-acted and directed nature of this film, I truly do think that Godzilla from 1954 is a masterpiece. And even if you're not a kaiju or monster or horror fan, I still think it's an essential movie to watch. I would put it up there with Seven Samurai that came out the same year. I'd put it next to The Godfather. I'd put it next to Star Wars. Next to any iconic and impactful movie that changed cinema as we know it, Godzilla deserves to be there too, without hesitation. I fucking love this movie. I love this franchise, but this movie stands above it all as a true piece of art and a showcase of the power of cinema. It's entertaining us with a story and a compelling narrative, characters with complex dispositions, special effects that push the boundaries of the time, commentary on humanity as a whole, and, you know, it's a giant fucking monster that shoots atomic breath. It's cool. So if you guys are a fan of Godzilla or just the franchise in general, tell me what you think down below. How did this movie affect you? When did you first see it? And how do you think it holds up today? Let me know all your thoughts, and as always, thank you guys for watching this video. I truly do appreciate it, and if you want to see some more Godzilla reviews, just like and comment, man. Let me know that you care, and I'll probably create some more for you. Give the video some interaction to let me know you're interested, and we'll go from there. But other than that, guys, thank you a lot for watching. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have a Patreon, merch store, and channel memberships all linked down below. Other than that, guys, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.